Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Pia Carpenter. I'm your current MPI Westfield chapter president, and I'm here today to welcome you to our event that was supposed to be held on March 10th and was postponed. And being part of our industry, we do what we have to do. So we've changed it and we've done a virtual meeting today, and we thank you for your participation. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge and recognize what's happening in our community. We are in New Rochelle, where it started, and in Fairfield County. And with that, I'd like to say we have all of our members in our prayers and in our thoughts. We do have some members that have the COVID-19. But we're together, and we're in this together, and we're going to make it, because that's who we are. We are the best of Westchester, New York, and the best until Fairfield County, Connecticut. So with that, I wanted to take a moment to thank who's making this production and all the production company behind the scenes, Corporate AV. And I'd also like to thank our sponsors, our sponsor today, who is Discover Puerto Rico. I want to welcome all of our MPI Westfield chapter members, our MPI members, our guests, and our community. Next slide, please. There's some housekeeping notes, just so everyone knows. You are on mute. Only speaker cams are on. Any questions, if you look at the bottom, there's a little chat box, and you can ask any questions at all in there. This program is going to be recorded and will be on the MPI Westfield chapter website and social media, so you can see it afterwards. You will be receiving a 1.5 hours of EIC credits. And if you have any technical issues, which some of us do, you can use our chat box for rfinch, which is RFINCH at corporate, little line, hyphen, or not a hyphen, just a little line, av.com. Next slide, please. With our members, to give some notes, our most valuable members for February was Elaine Lease. Many of you know her. She's on our social media, always putting the information in there. So she was our most valuable member for February. And for March, our most valuable member is Mike Fiorentino. Mike Fiorentino, as most of you know, was our founding father for the chapter. And with that, I want to say he also found our incoming president. So as of today, your current president-elect is Mark Speranza, who's actually moderating this. So you're going to get a chance to meet him and spend some time with him today. But he will be our 2020-2021 incoming president. Next slide. And with that, I'd like to welcome our new members, Hannah Best and Mark Speranza. Also want to wish anyone whose birthday was in February or March or April a happy birthday. Next slide. And join a committee. Why do I put it out there? We are MPI Westfield. For anyone that doesn't know, MPI Westfield stands for West is for Westchester, and Field is for Fairfield County. So we actually encompass Westchester, New York, and Fairfield County. Together, we are MPI Westfield. Many of you know us, but if during these times, if you have an hour or if you want to know more about our chapter, please come visit us. Let us know. We make phone calls. We're going to have a new platform starting next week that one of our members, Cameron Tooth, with his company, that's going to be offering that to the chapter, and we'll be able to have quick information as well as more of a platform to talk, to connect, to engage, to stay connected. So I'll be sending more information out to our chapter on that. So join a committee, take an hour. If you have the time right now and you want to get busy, we have stuff for everyone to do. So please join us. Next slide. And with that, I want to thank our sponsors today, Discover Puerto Rico, and your contact. You have a local contact, Rita Lopez, and I'd like to formally introduce Rita Lopez.
Gracias, bienvenidos. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to MPI Westfield chapter for allowing us this opportunity to connect with all of you. This is a great way to connect with all of you. Thanks for the opportunity, and there's also another great way to connect with us in Puerto Rico. Follow us in social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even Facebook Live. We are doing breaks and virtual opportunities for you to come and visit us. In Puerto Rico, we've done salsa, we've done renowned chefs demonstrations, drinks. Follow us this Friday. We're gonna have a virtual tour of the El Yunque. So for those of you that have been there, will be a great way to see it again. And for those of you that don't know El Yunque, it will be a great way for you to see it. This is a national rainforest. And Saturday we're doing Pilates. We're actually doing it on a beautiful, it's live, and it's going to be at the beautiful beach of Dorado. So follow us on social media, Discover Puerto Rico, and also meetings in PR. That's another of our handles. And stay connected with us. Let's stay together apart, hashtag, and we look forward to seeing you in Puerto Rico very soon. But in the meantime, take a deep breath and enjoy this video and transport yourself to Puerto Rico. Gracias, and we'll see you soon.
Good afternoon, I'm Mark Speranza. I'm wearing several hats, new member, president-elect, and moderator for this conference. It's a great opportunity for you to start to make sense of what the pandemic means for our industry. I've spent a lot of time on the news and they cover a lot of different topics, but we're gonna really drill down today and talk specifically what COVID-19 means for our industry, for meetings, for travel, and for events. The session description is disaster aftermath. Where do we go from here? Reconstructing the future. We have some great panelists with us today to help us answer some questions. We have a Q&A line at the bottom of the screen. You can start to funnel your questions in now. We'll get to a lot of questions at the end of the discussion, but some of them we'll discuss as they come along. The first person I want to introduce is Toni Alonso. Toni is Global Conferencing and Major Event Director for E-Trade Financial Services. Been with E-Trade since 2017, and it'll be her perspective on corporate events. Thank you, Toni. Our second panelist today is Ed Carey, Chief Sales Officer for Discover Puerto Rico. And Ed's been an industry veteran for more than 25 years in sales and marketing, a variety of different sales and marketing positions in Puerto Rico and elsewhere, and really has his pulse on what's happening with the DMCs. So we're gonna get right into it. All right, so Toni, let's kick things off a bit.
Sure.
If we start to return to work in, let's say, May, June, July, we're still figuring out when that's going to be. Can you talk a little bit about what you see in the future for corporate events? How does COVID-19 affect the world of corporate events through 2020? And what is the new norm for our industry?
Okay. Well, I don't think that you're going to see corporate events in 2020 at all. I think it's going to take a long time before companies and people are ready to go out there and expose themselves once more. What I think we should be seeing is a total disruptor in this industry. And I think we'll see many new companies coming out. And some of those are going to be people who are going to speak to you as to how do you do these virtual events? How can you have a major conference and display your exhibit? Go ahead and train and educate people on the new applications, the new services you're offering. So I think that what we'll see is that the entire event business and everyone who does this transforms themselves. They become now a little bit of a technician, a little bit of a strategist, but most importantly, a consultant to major corporations as to how is it that we can do this and keep people abreast of what's happening within their industries.
That's great, thank you. Coming from the hotel side, I've got 25 plus years in the industry, and we've had to push forward all of the events that were originally contracted in March, April, May, and now June. So you envision little to not much happening in 2020 for events, not even on the virtual side.
I do see the virtual side.
Okay.
So that is happening. I'm doing virtual town halls. I'm doing virtual all hands calls for my company. So I do see us doing it virtual. What's happening is I think that people are uncomfortable, unsure of how to use this mechanism. They're running into issues. You know, not everyone has a nice screen behind them the way Ed does. So I think, like I said, is what we're going to see is people coming into this industry who are going to be the ones who teach us how to do this. Virtual is a little bit different than being in a general session. If I'm in a general session, it's fine to speak for an hour and a half and show slides. If I'm doing it this way, it's a little bit more difficult. I can't gauge my audience. I can't see if they're with me, if they're following me or not. So there's all these cues that we're now going to have to do virtually. And how is it that you do that? Do you poll people? Do you question people? You know, how do you have that interaction?
Great, thank you. Let's bring Ed into the conversation. Ed, over the past several years, Puerto Rico has dealt with devastating hurricanes and with earthquakes. Can you share Discover Puerto Rico's virtual strategy and how it can be helpful in strategizing for the new normal of tourism?
Happy to do so. And as a matter of fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen briefly and put up a few slides to help walk us through the conversation.
That's great.
Okay. Can we all see that on our screens?
Looks good.
All right. First, I wanted to say good afternoon, obviously, and thanks for allowing Discover Puerto Rico to be a part of today's conversation. Obviously, I hope you're all doing well and staying healthy. And really, for years, no conversation about Puerto Rico is complete without feedback from our brothers and sisters in New York. So I'm taking notes, and I expect to learn more from you than you likely will from me. But back to the question, for better or worse, if there's one area that Puerto Rico has become good at, it's crisis intervention. I mean, we went from the financial crisis that we all suffered to the Zika crisis, to Maria, to earthquakes. So we have a robust crisis communication plan. And, you know, of course, we give this thing a workout. It was developed in partnership with our public relations agency, Ketchum, based out of New York. And it includes about 20 crisis scenarios. And the scenario for airborne illness and infectious disease was adapted and implemented early on. And you saw a really quick movement from the government of Puerto Rico in containment and risk mitigation. So we feel that gave us a little bit of a head start on our efforts to stay engaged with our most important customers. And we think that's incredibly important. So today we see ourselves out of the impact phase and have moved on to what we call the regroup phase. And while, obviously no one has a firm timeline on this crisis, we do anticipate we will live in this phase for several more weeks at a minimum. And as a destination, we're focused on containment and risk aversion, but as a marketing organization, we can't stand still. We believe this is the time for responsible messaging, thoughtful activations, non-salesy, meaningful dialogue with future visitors and clients. We have to continue to educate them on the aggressive measures that we're taking to safeguard our island and their future visits. But whether we're talking about mandates or sharing beautiful images, the key in this phase is keeping our destination top of mind. So to that end, our partners at Ketchum recently conducted a survey of travel journalists. And it's no secret that with paid media on a hiatus, earned media and social media are more important than ever. 8 in 10 journalists are currently covering tourism-related topics, and they are looking for fresh, relevant, newsworthy content. We also know that consumers are, of course, some of them are getting bored at home and more bored as the days pass. So since today we can't bring visitors to Puerto Rico, we decided to bring Puerto Rico to them. And we were actually the first destination to launch a virtual vacation, which was inviting viewers to immerse in our culture and escape to Puerto Rico virtually. We partnered with local talent to teach, for instance, a salsa lesson. And I know Rita mentioned some of the ongoing activations that we hope you can enjoy with us. But here we were virtual salsa lessons. There was a cocktail mixing class as well, and an opportunity to learn how to cook authentic Puerto Rican cuisine from the comfort of, obviously your living room. And due to the success of those efforts, that's why we extended through the end of April, as Rita pointed out to you. And through this 3-day, getaway, so to speak, we garnered a total of 178 million impressions in top tier media outlets. And we generated, 3.1 million in earned ad equivalency. And so this first of its kind activation received so much interest that we're going to continue on. And we're sharing just a few more statistics from our social channels related to the virtual vacation. Facebook impressions were at 825,000, which is up 119% from the previous week. Instagram profile views were up 327% from the previous week, and 3,700 new followers. We expect these numbers will continue to grow with increased promotion and coverage of these events. And our sales and services team is staying incredibly busy. We need to stay engaged with our key audiences. And we partnered with a local coffee provider to provide an authentic Puerto Rican coffee break to our VIP planners and advisors. And you can see here our team, safely packaging the coffee with care. And here's a quick look at what the message included. It's our industry is resilient, and so are you. We're guessing you could use a break about now. While we all figure this out, enjoy a cup of Puerto Rican coffee on us. And that was it. We left it at that. And we feel that if we stay engaged and show empathy, then that will frankly serve as a bridge for us to engage you in more substantive conversation, when the time is right. And you saw social is incredibly important these days. And you saw where by proactively messaging in a very tasteful way, we were able to engage, a significant audience. And this was some of the responses of gratitude that we received from these packages. The idea was simple. In this time of uncertainty and angst, our message and tone isn't about selling, as I said, it's about inspiring and dreaming. And when the time is right, we'll reconnect on the business front. So I'm anxious to hear your thoughts on when that timing is right. One of the last things I'll mention, and perhaps I'll expand upon it during a little later in this meeting, but we ran a customer advisory board meeting just yesterday, which was Tuesday. I'm starting to forget days, as you probably all are as well. And in that meeting, we had roughly 20 meeting planners across different third parties. We had corporate, association, even religious and fraternal management organizations. And one of the things I think we're going to be grappling with as meeting planners and hoteliers is we're going to be looking for things today that we weren't looking for yesterday. And I think as hoteliers, for instance, we're going to have to be more flexible than perhaps we have been in the past. And we're going to have to understand that meeting planners are going to be looking for our plans to ensure that safety and security are the most important parts of any conversation. So we'll get into more of that, but the point of bringing that up was that we're using a board of meeting planners to help us gauge when the timing is right to get back into the mode of helping you secure business opportunities. So on that, I think it ends the formal part of my conversation.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Ed, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Having the ability to kind of jumpstart into the virtual world with the events that have happened in Puerto Rico, I think will help us in our next steps moving forward as an industry. I want to thank Stephen for the first question that came in. He's asking about more smaller regional events in 2020. Absolutely. I think that's the way things are going. The big annual conferences, I think you've really got to think twice about bringing that number of people together. So smaller may in fact be better in 2020. And that actually dovetails nicely with my question for Toni next. And you touched on this a bit, but I want to look at it from maybe a little bit different angle. Toni, assuming that a vaccine is still many months down the road, what does the meetings world look like in terms of specifically board meetings, town halls, and major conferences? Are we in a temporary virtual world, or is this a new trend that the industry needs to really accept? Is it going to be, the term that I keep hearing on the news? Is this a game changer?
This is a game changer. This will be the new norm. The question is really, how are people going to accept that new norm? How quickly will they be able to transform themselves and be able to handle it? I think as you see, more folks are doing virtual happy hours, they're FaceTiming with their families or Zoom conferencing with their families, that it will become more and more accepted. Where you run into issues is more or less, it's still a whole production. We have a production company behind us right now. So it's being able to understand that production. It's being able to understand how long should these meetings be? How long can we engage with someone? Will our message come across or not? I think that's what companies are going to grapple with. It also depends upon the person. Are they comfortable in this medium or not? I mean, I know of executives who are not comfortable doing something of this sort. They don't trust the technology. They're uncomfortable with their technology. They feel much better when they're in front of an audience. So how is it that we're going to be able to work with these individuals to get them to become more comfortable, more familial, more engaged when they use this type of technology?
That's good. Those are great points. I appreciate that. Now, here's a question also to you, Toni, near and dear to my heart as a supplier.
Right.
What is the supplier's role in this? Because I've been on furlough since March 19th, and we're sitting on the sidelines and just waiting to be able to do what we have done for our careers, to sell, to engage. What is our role as this develops from your perspective as a planner?
My perspective is, as a supplier, you now become a consultant. You don't necessarily sell. You are there to teach. You are there to listen to what the needs are and to strategize as to how their objective can be met in this new norm. And I've always believed that if you act more as a consultant, if you understand what their objective is, that you'll sell. Without really selling, you would have sold your business.
Yeah. I
That's
think
a great point.
I think this, to Toni's point, we should always, as salespeople, be more consultants than pitching per se. And one of the things that I think you're going to find from this situation is meeting planners are going to look to hoteliers, and I mentioned earlier, to be flexible, right? To work with them, because this is a very, very incredibly difficult time for all of us, and including planners. And so we're going to find that trust will be what establishes the longest lasting relationships. So if I urge any hoteliers to you're going to feel pressure from your revenue management, from your asset managers, from your ownership, but you must continue to be an advocate for the meeting planner.
That makes sense. Ed, short term, what are you doing, and what could our audience be doing to balance staying relevant and top of mind with your customers, yet being tactful amid this crisis? How do you stay involved yet in a very respectful and not overwhelming way?
Yeah, well, I think what I pointed out earlier, that as an example, obviously social is king now. People are home, they are plugged in, and we have in some respects, a captive audience, right? Folks that are willing to listen to our message. I referred to the coffee care package program, and that's something we kicked off almost immediately. We knew right away that there's no way anyone wanted to talk to us about new business when they were in the middle of postponing and canceling business. Right? Meeting planners are busy. They didn't immediately stop working with hoteliers. They had to figure out what to do with the programs they had booked. So, we wanted to keep that in mind. We know you're busy, and we want to help you relocate. Many of the hotels, like you, Mark, their salespeople were furloughed, and the planner now doesn't have a point of contact at the specific hotel. So we immediately wanted to make ourselves, and we don't take for granted that we're still working. We're very grateful for that. But we also want to extend ourselves as your point of contact for any of the hotels in Puerto Rico. So being helpful was something that we thought would be important. But then again, along the coffee promotion I mentioned, it was a way for us to just say, hey, let's bring a little bit of joy into your day. And as I think Toni can attest to, Puerto Rican coffee is amongst the best in the world, and it was it's a nice treat to have your way. And you know what? Honestly, I know it sounds, frankly, among professionals here, it also allows us the opportunity to call you, and hopefully you'll pick up the phone, when this is all over, because you'll remember a nice gesture.
Yeah, that's great.
I think one of the things you can do is, many companies have obligations to their customers and their clients in education. I know that my company does. We're always updating our applications. They need to understand how to use them, etc. So the question really that you can pose to those meeting planners is, what is it that you need to accomplish? What do you need to deliver to your customers, your clients? What do you need to deliver to your employees? And how can we help you do that?
That's great. I love that. Hey, the question came in from Jane. Jane, thank you for the question. What can we do to help others get acclimated to this new normal? Maybe people that are overseeing a team and they don't have the years of experience and they're a little bit overwhelmed by this. And, you know, they don't have that experience to fall back on. How do you mentor that team, and how do you help some of the more junior people on your team deal with everything that's happening now?
Are you asking that from a meeting standpoint? How is it that we keep people engaged?
Yeah, people on your team, people with E-Trade that you interact with.
So we're doing we're asking people when they come to all hands meetings to do different things. Wear a hat. What hat would you wear? You know, or show me your pet. You know, we're trying to see the humanness in each one of us. Yeah. You're so used to seeing the individual as a professional in the office, but the circumstances are different and everyone is handling the situation differently. Some people I know don't like being isolated, do not like being alone and not being able to go out and interact with people. For myself, that's different. I happen to like being alone. I like myself, you know, so I don't mind being my own company. But how do you deal with people like that? So let's show some humanness. Bring your child in. Be understanding. If you hear, the other day I heard somebody singing Old MacDonald's, and I'm like, oh, did she learn that in school? So be human about the situation. Reach out to people. There are some folks who are really getting depressed about the whole situation, and you've got to let them know that, as we said at the very beginning, we're all in this together, you know. And what is it that they said? Oh, it's Kelly Clarkson's song. What doesn't harm you makes you stronger. This will make us stronger.
Yeah.
Great. Any thoughts on that, Ed?
Yeah, I agree in Toni's comments about show your humanity. You know, we, tonight at 5 o'clock, our team is having just a happy hour with the sales and services team. And we're all going to showcase a drink we made. We did it at 5 o'clock, trying to behave. And then we're just going to talk about, in a semi-structured way, right? Not a strict agenda, but a semi-structured agenda about what are the main questions that are on your mind. You know, and we want to be constructive. What do we think which industries will respond quicker than others, which will have to hold their meetings first, which can go to virtual meetings, when is it the right time to be talking to meeting planners, all the things we're discussing today. And I find that not only does that keep us engaged with each other, but when you have a sense of purpose, right, that really is something that I think keeps us all going. In our case, we believe 100% that we will lead the recovery of tourism into Puerto Rico. It's why we were established. It's what we do every day, and this isn't going to change that. So we're keeping our sense of purpose. We're keeping humanity alive. We're staying in close contact with each other, and we're having a little fun while we do it as best we can.
That makes sense. Hey, Sharon has a question, and Ed, maybe you can touch on this a little bit, but Sharon asked, what's the prediction on the travel bans being lifted, knowing that there will be a long recovery even after that time? Yeah. Do you have any sense of that? I know it probably varies for different areas, but what are you hearing about that?
Well, you know, I've been keeping an eye on several different indicators, as everyone else has, and anecdotally, it appears there's a mix of data and anecdotal evidence that looks as if we can start to see a slow climb beginning this summer, with a return to meetings, although slowly, beginning October, November, you know, Q4. As I think you mentioned earlier in the conversation, the meetings that moved out of March and April and May shifted, a good percentage of them shifted into Q4. And our need periods in the hotel, which were once in the fall, have now shifted to other dates because events were moved into the fall. So we do see it start to, there is some evidence that we're going to start to see a growth beginning in the summer with Q4. Now, obviously, this is all depending on you know, what the government says, right? It all depends on whether the restrictions are lengthened, or, you know, there's quite a bit of unknown to this entire thing. But that's what it looks like at the moment: a slow climb in the summer, more business in Q1, but new meetings will be sourced for 21 and 22. So as Toni alluded to, don't look to be booking new business in 2020 at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, let's shift a little bit to technology, because I think it's going to really be key moving forward. Question: what can planners do to be ready for these changes? What tools, resources, or knowledge might be needed besides a Zoom account? Everyone seems, I think Zoom went from 10 million users to 200 million users with all these schools coming on board. But there's got to be more than Zoom. And talk a little bit about some of the technology that's out there, some of the tools that can help planners.
So there, besides Zoom, there is things like WebEx.
Yeah.
There is GoToMeeting. There is, you know, video conferencing in its traditional sense. And all of these can be intermixed and used. I think what hotels historically have not gone ahead and invested in these types of technologies because it takes away from people being together and being in place. Right. I think they have to rethink that now and say, is this something we should do? Is this something that I can then offer, you know, my client and say, well, you know, you don't necessarily have to have everyone in person. We can video conference out to a group of folks, or we have the technology where you can WebEx or Zoom conference, etc. So I think we will now see hotels invest in some of this technology. It will not be the total AV production as we knew it before, but you know, boardrooms, conference rooms, et cetera, can have this at a lower cost, and you can offer it and sell it to people like myself. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. I think you're going to see, even in education too, that also change. The fact that you can now teach a child while they're at home. What I think you are also going to see is a big investment in infrastructure to ensure that we can handle this and move forward. There is still a lot of buzz about, is the internet going to go ahead and implode at some point in time, because all of us are using it so much.
You know, I agree with everything Toni just said. You know, I will say that if you take a page out of the playbook after, you remember the 2008 financial crisis, and I remember there was quite a bit of conversation about, you know, moving to a movement towards more video conferencing, et cetera. And that's when I think it was the Oxford Economics Group and MPI came out with Meetings Matter, right? Documentation. And in those studies, they were able to point out that there was still a significant return on your travel investment when you did meet the return on your investment. When you met live, the return was much greater than video conferencing. So, you know, it's not going to go away, but I think, as Toni pointed out, it can enhance some of our face-to-face meetings. And but getting together, shaking hands, meeting your most important customers, building team culture and camaraderie will always be something that, as humans, you know, we'll be drawn to.
And I do agree with you on that, Ed. I've always said that one of the things when I would go ahead and have team meetings or I'm putting a new team together is that you need to press the flesh.
Yeah.
I need to see you. I need to face you. I need to build some kind of camaraderie with you so that when we are no longer together, I still have that same trust in you and belief,
Exactly.
etc.
Yeah.
So, you know, we are creatures of habit. We like to touch people. We like to feel. That's never going to go away.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Ed, put your marketing hat on for a moment. I know you've done a lot in the marketing world. How might public events be marketed in the future once it's safe for everybody to get together again? You mentioned shaking hands, and I would assume that's without a glove and skin to skin, which is maybe our new reality. So how are we going to be marketing our events? How will that be changing in light of less face-to-face interactions?
Well, you know, I think first, when marketing events in the future, I think it's going to be critical to address the concerns of the attendees just as much as the expected topics of safety and security. You know, given the nature of the COVID virus, you know, open communication is going to be critical. In speaking with a number of the meeting planners and hoteliers in our advisory board meeting yesterday, I think there's going to have to be a new protocol of here are the what we're doing to ensure your safety and security from a travel standpoint, from an arrival at the airport standpoint, from the really the cleanliness protocol of the hotels. You know, all of these things are going to become part of the conversation of a meeting. It's not simply you know, we're going to enjoy a beautiful beach like you see behind me. It's we're going to enjoy a beautiful beach. We're going to you know, we're going to share important best practices and knowledge, but we're going to do it in a safe way. And here's how that is going to be accomplished. So I think that safety and security thing has to be as much about the conversation as the content itself moving forward.
That's great. Hey, keep the questions coming. Curry, thank you for your question. So Curry asked, do we forecast 2021 as being one of the biggest years for conferences, given all that was canceled in 2020, assuming that we will have a continuation, assuming there's a vaccine found by then, which she believes there will be. So will there be an avalanche of business in 2021? Is that being forecasted as the big year for recovery?
I would not say that that's the big year for recovery. I think many companies or many businesses, let me put it that way, need to recover first. So I know the restaurants have to come back. Some of the hotels have to come back. The airlines have to come back. And that's going to take time. And what's going to take more time, even with a vaccine potentially being discovered, and I had worked for a pharmaceutical company, so the thought that we may have a vaccine within 14 or 18 months kind of scares me because I know how long it takes to discover a drug.
Yeah.
I would say that we may see some in 2021. I don't think that people are going to be ready to trust it yet. I would say maybe 2022 may be a bigger year. Let's see what happens with sports. I happen to think that sports will be the inroads to what happens. So they're talking about the baseball season being started, not the way we know it, but that will happen. Will we have an NFL season? Are we going to see people start going to watch football games? Are schools coming back? Are you going to go to your high school football games, your children's soccer games? I think we need to see that part of our lives come forward before we see ourselves going to these massive conferences again.
Interesting. Ed, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is going to be more of a ramp up, kind of what Toni mentioned. I do believe sports will come back, especially because with the Olympics being moved out of 21 into 22, I think, or was it 20 to 21?
20 to 21.
20 to 21. I think that you're possibly going to see a whole new series of regional sports events and qualifications that will be taking place after these athletes themselves are getting out of either quarantine or social distancing. So yeah, I think sports could rebound more quickly than some of our big conferences. And the other thing is, this is a little bit different than, for instance, a 9/11, where it wasn't it was a matter of the airlines have been hit so hard with this that they have planes that are in dry dock, and I've heard many airlines say that when in the new normal, we are going to look at the bringing back our fleets as a startup. What are the markets that we know we have good marketing support and the good possibility of load factors? And this is their opportunity as well to sort of redesign the way they do business. So all of that's going to take a little bit of time. I think some destinations, some areas will recover quicker than others. But I don't see 21 necessarily being a banner year. I see it being a whole heck of a lot better than 2020. So at least we've got that going for us.
Yeah. Now, what about like hybrid events? That term's been bandied about a bit. Combination of face-to-face and virtual and other communication channels and social media. Are we going to see companies sending only a few people to a trade show, meeting, or event? And Cameron wants to know, are face masks going to be commonplace at events? Or are they going to be put in a box to be used down the road?
I think regarding face masks, I think that you may see them there. I think what we're definitely going to see is the wipes as you walk in to any conference room will be there for you to take. I think you're going to see hand sanitizers, just like the way you see a pitcher of water and a glass there with a pad and a pen. You're going to see a hand sanitizer at every table moving forward. And I do think that there are going to be hybrids. There are going to be only a few individuals sent to conferences whose responsibility will be to get a lot of the information and bring it back to a team. I think you are going to see where people will say, I am conferencing this out, either Zoom or WebEx or whatever medium we use, to a fleet of people who are out there who can watch this too. Some conferences already do that. I think what we're going to see is more and more people adopting this.
Yeah, I'm going to, Mark and Toni, maybe you would have some thoughts on this. One of the things we're hearing from planners is as I mentioned before, we're going to be looking for different things today than we were looking for yesterday. And it may be, as a hotelier, Mark, you can appreciate this, that hoteliers are looking to make sure that the meetings to rooms, the space to rooms ratio makes sense, right? Sure. And we all hear that. And I think that we're going to, as hoteliers, have to be more flexible than ever before, because it may be now that I don't want to put 4 or 6 people at a table. I only want to put 4 at a given table and spread them apart a little bit more. And so that rooms to space ratio thing becomes a whole different conversation. And, what about the buffet? I may not feel that I want to be doing buffets anymore because too many people are possibly, touching this. So I think, again, I think hotels have to be prepared to explain the touch points of, the food preparation process and everything else. And salespeople and convention service managers need to know that planners are quite simply going to have different concerns, and they must educate themselves on what those concerns could be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Robin, thank you for your question. So Robin wants to say, to alleviate concerns of hosting events at hotels and venues, what are specifically some of the new health and safety protocols that we foresee being implemented in the post-pandemic world? And you talked about hand washing, sanitized, less buffets. Anything else you could think of that hotels can use to be responsive to expectations from the corporate world?
Yeah. Again, Toni, I would think, the protocols on cleanliness, I would think, I would want to, as a hotelier, say, hey, here's a little bit about, whether you read it or not, here's how we clean, here's the products we use to clean our rooms. Here's, how we're making sure that they're deep cleaned after every checkout, and here's the products that the proven products that we're going to be using to do that. And here is what we're doing in our public areas to make sure that heavily trafficked areas are paid attention to even more than some others. So I think there's going to be a whole protocol of and then therefore materials produced that speak to safety and security, as there should be.
Yeah, I agree with you. And not only that, I think people are going to not only want to hear what you have to say of what you're doing, but they want to see it. Mm-hmm. So I want to see more people in the lobby cleaning down those handles, cleaning down the desk, where you go to register, things of that sort. So it's not only don't just tell me, but let me actually see for myself as I walk into that lobby, is there somebody cleaning at all times?
Yeah.
A new meaning to the word white glove service, huh?
Yes.
Not just for the fancy, but for reality. So former MPI President Rick Weaver asked an interesting question. Who is the definitive answer on all of these issues? Where do we go to find out who is supposed to guide us? There's so much information and so many points of view out there. Who should we be listening to specifically in the event world?
Is it Andrew Cuomo? He's doing a good job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that an MPI leadership opportunity, or are there other sources to get this information from? What do you think?
I think we all have a part in this. One is we do look to our government officials to give us guidance on some of this. I think right now we should really be looking to our health officials who have to deal with this and hopefully are looking at what is the next thing that will hit us. Just as we're looking to come out of this, we'll be walking into the new flu season. So, we have to think about that. But I think more importantly, look to yourself. What is it that you feel that you should be doing? How should you be handling this? Sometimes, they say, listen to that gut instinct. And in this one, I'm going to say, listen to your gut instinct. How do I handle this? What do I have to do?
And then one thing that's incontrovertible, I think, is science, right? We have to pay attention, as Toni said, to what our leadership in the health field are telling us, right? And so is it, we know during the public briefings every night there, that becomes more of a show than anything else, right? So I think we have to pay attention to the health professionals. The CDC, I think, has done a good job throughout this process. So the science is going to ultimately tell us, and hopefully the travel restrictions will follow the science as they lessen.
Let's talk a little bit about revenue. I'm sure we have some suppliers on the call today that work for venues, and it's pretty obvious virtual meetings do not include food and beverage. So on the revenue side, what are the ways that properties can generate revenue by doing things a little bit differently? What are the opportunities to try and rescue some of that lost revenue growth as we start to move away from this and start to have events again? Are there any other ways to recoup some of that lost revenue? Because our balance sheets are going to be in total disarray from what they were. Any thoughts on that?
I don't think you can recoup what's lost. What's lost is lost. Okay. What you want to be able to do is say, what can I do moving forward? How will I change myself moving forward? If you look at having some of these meetings, maybe within a city or whatever, do you then say, I'm going to do a virtual meeting, but I'd like F&B to be delivered to those participants who are going to be in this city, virtually participating. So again, that out of the box thinking of how is it that I can still be of value while maintaining the new norm.
Okay. Any thoughts, Ed?
Well, you spoke to, I was writing myself a note, you spoke earlier to the fact that there's going to be more regional meetings. So I think as sales and marketing professionals in the hotel side, you're going to want to recalibrate your targets. And it may be that, for instance, what we can't do it in Puerto Rico, but in New York, you may be able to focus more on a drive-to market than a market that is then folks that are going to have to worry about getting on the plane, at least in the short term. So, and I also think becoming more involved in your local community, assuming social distancing has lessened, maybe it's a point where, in addition to your sales team focusing on markets they know are traveling or can drive to your destination, perhaps your local catering teams are working on creative opportunities to keep your banquet space full with local events. Frankly, it's something we always wrestle with, but this may be a time to really double down on getting closely involved with your community. Okay.
So there's a question that's, it says a recession/pandemic is a ripe time for disruption, innovation, and new technologies, niche products, platforms, and content. Some of the best companies are born from difficult times. Are there any silver linings here? I know it's still maybe a little bit early in the process to ask that question. Any silver linings? Do you see any positive opportunities that may come out of COVID-19?
Absolutely. We haven't seen them yet, but let me tell you, they're out there developing it. I'm sure of that. I think you're going to see a lot of things. We're seeing things in the health industry where they're saying we can develop something faster, quicker. We will have the FDA approve it faster, quicker than we've ever seen it done before. So you're going to see the health industry is going to change. I think we've seen other companies now step up to the forefront and go ahead and manufacture things that they never manufactured before. So the ability for companies to switch their model very quickly is something. There will be more technology of this sort that is going to be developed that will be easy to install and to utilize and to use anywhere. I think we will see education change. So this is really the forefront of what the next 10 years may be like.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. I think we'll have to answer the question, why weren't we prepared? And that's going to involve a lot of retooling, as Toni just outlined. And, frankly, I think there are going to be, I don't want to sound salesy at all, but, we think that Puerto Rico could become a even more sought after destination as folks are less likely to potentially travel internationally and want to be in a U.S. territory if things aren't going right, and want to be on shorter flights, and we also there's only two ways for a virus to get to an island. It's either on a cruise ship or in an airplane. So if we're taking very careful precautions on both of those areas, then we may be able to say moving forward that we're a safe and secure destination, and that in the tomorrow's world may be a very valuable value proposition.
I also think that we're going to want to see less densely populated areas. So where are the places that have been hit hard are where there are large cities with an enormous amount of people: New York, Los Angeles, Seattle, Detroit, New Orleans. So I think you're going to see people, I think you may even see people migrating out of these large cities moving forward.
Right. Hey, let's talk a little bit about staffing. Moselle asked an interesting question. She says, as businesses start to open, they will not be able to take back full staff until some income and profits start to occur. Some furloughed employees may take this as an opportunity to change employers or even careers. What are some ideas for the employee who does want to return to their former employer, but it's on a wait list until employer is able to hire them back? You know, what are some ideas for employees? What can they do in the meantime? And I'm going to actually answer this question a little bit myself, because I've done some teaching. I mean, if you've been in the industry for a while, there are some good hospitality schools in the area. If you're in the Northeast area, Monroe College, there's ICE, Institute of Culinary Education, has a nice hospitality track. Fairleigh Dickinson, Cornell would be a long commute, but there's NYU as well. There's some opportunities to perhaps teach, to take the experience that you have and teach some hospitality. Any ideas from Toni and Ed on things that you could do while you're kind of waiting on the sidelines, getting ready to get back in?
Well, now's an opportunity to go ahead and educate yourself. There are lots of online courses, and there's lots of universities and colleges who offer certificates online, degrees online, etc. Now's the time to look at what will emerge, what will be the new, what's the word I want to say? What will be the new occupations moving forward? Every time something has happened in this country, there's an opportunity for different jobs to be out there. So start looking at what is out there, what is going to become the new jobs that we can look at. I definitely think that things such as project planning is going to be something. Somebody who looks at disaster recovery will be a job. So all of these things, what's happening now leads us to see what can we do in the future. Is there a position in the future that I can move into?
Yeah, and you know, it's likely, Mark, that if hotel companies are laying off or furloughing, the majority of their sales staffs, there's going to be a lot of movement within some of the important jobs that are out there. And when the industry comes back, which it will, there may be opportunities that weren't available to you before. So stay engaged with your hotel, stay engaged with your hotel company. And as Toni said, use this opportunity to, assuming, financially, I know we all need to take care of that first, but do the things that, we're now doing things, or at least I am doing things that I've been meaning to get to for years, right? Been meaning to organize a particular resource in such a manner and just have been talking about it more than doing it. But now is the time to do that so that you become a stronger professional. And when things are loosened, when restrictions are loosened, you may be even more valuable than you were before the crisis.
Those are great points. I use Excel and I use PowerPoint, but I probably use 10% of what's available out there. So to become really proficient in Excel and PowerPoint, become a Zoom expert,
right?
And get some certifications that you never really had the time to take care of, to educate and build up your skill set. So Emily asked an interesting question, because we've been hearing about green initiatives for the last several years. So Emily asked the question, given shared resources as they will be compromised at hotels, do you think this will increase the individual use items, to-go items, disposable items, etc., which really counteracts our green initiatives as we try to incorporate that into our meetings? So who takes the lead here? Which one supersedes the other? Or can they coexist?
I think they can coexist. I don't see necessarily where consumption has to mean that, shall I say, safety and consumption doesn't have to mean that we become a disposable sort of, society. I think there are still plenty of precautions we can take to ensure that your refillable water bottle, for instance, it remains a focus of what you're doing in your F&B or your meetings portions. I don't think that has to necessarily mean a change in focus on sustainability.
I think what we may start to see is more people bring their own items with them. When I lived in Puerto Rico, I remember having fambreras, and I'm not sure if they still do that or not, but it's where you brought your own containers for somebody to fill up with food, and then you took it home with you at the end of the day and you fed your family. I think we're going to start to see a lot more of that, where maybe if I'm going to a takeout place, or I will bring something, if I'm going out to dinner and I know I'm going to do a doggy bath, I may bring my own Tupperware or whatever to put my food in versus using the hotels. So I think what we're going to see is a switch in how we as individuals start to handle this.
Wow, a new spin on BYOB. I like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so Robin asked an interesting question as well. What advice would you give your teenager going off to college about their career choices in a post-pandemic world? What jobs, industries would you encourage? If they still prefer the hospitality travel industry, what insight can you offer them based on your experience? So how much is this really changing our industry and opportunities for young people looking to get into our industry?
I think you've got the opportunities within travel will continue to grow. I think as humans, we're always going to want to explore. We're going to keep dreaming. We're going to want to meet new people. We're going to want to experience new things. That's never going to change. So I would say, that hospitality is, you're going to have to view it much more as a responsibility than simply to provide experiences that are now safe, and provide experiences that people can enjoy and know that they're secure. So I think it's going to make us as hospitality professionals it'll be important for us to be that much smarter on how we deliver our messaging, moving forward. So don't give up on hospitality. It's a great profession, and I would tell my kids, keep following. If that's what you want to do, keep following your dreams. I think health and medical and those types of services, there's going to be great opportunity as we said, we look to make sure that we're prepared for the future if anything like this should happen again. So keep plugging along if you're in the hospitality field. We're gonna be fine.
Hey Bonnie, thanks for your comment. Bonnie Cunningham, very active with MPI Westfield chapter for many years, is endorsing Ed Carey for president.
Oh boy.
Bernie is, right at the beginning of our call, Bernie Sanders actually dropped out of the race, just as an FYI. That is a true text. I got that over. So it's all Joe Biden moving forward. So
yeah.
We don't have any open questions at this point. Any last thoughts on what we do to move forward? What can be done to engage people and just keep things positive? I think that's really the message at this point. Any final thoughts on how do we stay positive in our industry moving forward?
Well, my positivity is getting up every morning and seeing the sunshine. So think about it. We're in spring, we're in Passover, we're in Easter, and all of that speaks of rebirth. And so think of this as an opportunity of our rebirth, our re-emerging, our ability to change and adapt to what's happening.
Yeah. And you know what? Take some time to appreciate all that we've accomplished and take a victory lap. I mean, I think I saw last night where roughly 97% of the country is on lockdown, is actually adhering to the principles of social distancing. That's an amazing response. And when the going got tough, we all pulled together and made it happen. So I think that says a lot for us as people, and not only the travel industry, but everyone in the country. So I think we deserve a round of applause for ourselves, and we're going to get through this. What choice do we have?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Hey, I want to thank everybody who participated today. Our panelists, who were really great. Discover Puerto Rico, our sponsor. Sponsorships are so important. Toni, Alonso, thank you so much for your insight into the events industry from the corporate side. Ed Carey, also from Puerto Rico, Discover Puerto Rico. Thank you for your insight, your feelings, and your honesty regarding this. I think we're gonna end with a little bit of a roll-up Puerto Rico slide, and then we're gonna say thank you to everyone, and we'll be back to you soon. And one final word, if you've got some extra time, get involved with your MPI chapter in more ways. Be on that committee or find somebody else to join our industry. If there's ever a time that we need more MPI members, this would be it. Let's build up our roles of people that have always been kind of on the sidelines and get them to step up. This is a great time for that. So once again, thank you for everybody that joined today, our participants and our sponsor and our panelists. Have a great day.
Thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.
Go New York.